I made earlier.
Here's one I made earlier.
Here's one I made earlier.
Here's one I made earlier. Here's one I made earlier.
Here's one I made earlier.
Hello Boy Peter fans and welcome back to Here's One I Made Earlier, the YouTube channel that's trying to be a TV show rather than a YouTube channel. And if you see me looking down, it's because I'm checking to make sure the camera doesn't die and to make sure I'm in frame because my video assist doesn't work. We did try this with a microphone, but that didn't work either, so if the audio is slightly off and you can hear some type noises, it's because I've noticed that when I was just editing the video now. Today we're doing a slightly different video. Usually it's me talking about a topic, discussing an area of Blue Peter, reviewing a book, opening a book, talking about the different events within the history of Blue Peter. But today we're doing something slightly different. A few years ago I had a podcast going called What We Hear in the Shadows. And within the podcast I talk with my co-host about the TV programme What Do We Hear in the Shadows. We started off with a film, then we did Wellington Paranormal, that is a spin-off from What Do We Hear in the Shadows, the film, and then we were going to talk about the TV series. But because of cross schedules and people becoming busy, that podcast ended prematurely. So what I decided to do was to create some pilots for new podcasts in the same podcast area, so I didn't have to create another podcast on the third channel, The Weird Side. So I did. The first one I did was Bucket List, which was supposed to be my version of a podcast called Your Shopping List or Off Menu and those type of podcasts. And then I did Rewind the Tape, which was a podcast where me and a guest would talk about different TV shows that we brought to the table to discuss that came out in a certain decade that was chosen by me, the host. And then finally was Here's One I Made Earlier, and where I review episodes of Blue Peter. Now, I like that concept of reviewing episodes of Blue Peter, so I thought I'm going to try and see if that's something new the fans want to watch me review an episode of Blue Peter. So this is going to be like a trial slash sort of a guessing game to whether or not this is something that you as fans want to see me talk about. So let me know in the comment section down below, either on YouTube or wherever you're watching this video, because I would love to know your opinion to A, improve this channel, and B, make this more like a TV show rather than a YouTube channel. So this is what I'm doing here. So I'm not going to tell you what episode, like the date of the episode, because that's what I'm about to tell you first thing in the video. But every time we do this series, we will, sorry about the lighting by the way, my actual light itself, the light that did most of the lighting from that side has died on me. So I'm going to give you a suggestion of what episodes you want me to review. I will watch them, write notes and talk about them in heaven detail, and do these openings at the beginning so that I can learn to try and do more headshot type interview type thing, so that I can get the right angles, I can learn about new angles, new areas, and I can practice my camera abilities. So without further ado, here is Past Tom talking about an episode of Blue Peter. Please enjoy and let me know your thoughts and where I can improve and how I can make this channel more like a TV show rather than a YouTube channel. Today it's Here's One I Made Earlier, a Blue Peter podcast. What I've done is I've watched an episode of Blue Peter because I've got my iPad in front of me with my notes on to what topics they spoke about. The episode came from, I'll be able to tell the year, from the 8th of April 1968. Now the first one was football. What they did was they had a footballer from the 60s, Scottish footballer, and showed John Noakes how to do these certain moves. So keepy uppies, the knee one, the one on the back of the neck. And then he went on a training course to be a goalkeeper. Now, just before we continue, all the mistakes we've had in this pilot we'll be leaving in. Well, not all of them. We'll leave some of them in. So I do apologise for poor sound when there was poor sound. Number 2 was a pigeon. Now, this wasn't part of the show. There wasn't supposed to be a pigeon in the room at the time. but it happened to be a fact that the pigeon broke in by accident. So they were in the middle of doing a segment, and there was a pigeon in the background. What was supposed to be there were the baby goats, and they were there. One of the baby goats, Peter Purvis, had a hard time trying to give it the bottle of milk to, which made the episode more comical than you would think. You would think for Blue Peter that it wouldn't have any comical angles in the early days, but it did have comical angles. Sorry if this video is also short. There's just not a lot to talk about, and I'm trying to develop the podcast in itself and coming up with ideas. So, trying to work out what length works for the solo ones, what length would work for a one where I have a guest. So, at the end of this, we'll probably do a poll or something. So the pigeon breaks in, right? They cut to a clip of one of the presenters at the Tower of London, where she was talking about Lady Jane Grey, the 9-day. She was only the Queen for 9 days. And then Easter. So their famous catchphrase, here's one I made earlier, is for their making segments. It was Easter time because it was April, and they made some egg out gelatin things. So they had an eggshell, the gelatin within it, as a mold, and they made it. And I don't know if you're supposed to eat them or what, but it seemed rather interesting. So they did sports cars. They did sport cars, and he had a motor racing bloke in. He wasn't Formula One. He was the it's the NASCAR. He was a NASCArer, I think. I'm not too sure if he was a NASCArer now. Oh, I'm now confused. Oh no. I don't know. Anyway, they had him with a car that was broken, and they had him on to show him the car. They also had Petra, was the dog of the time, and they had a new guide dog as a puppy they were training. Well, they weren't going to train him, they were going to keep. So, I think it was a generally interesting episode, and I'm excited to watch the next one. I've seen them all before, so yeah, so there you go. That is, here's one I made earlier. If this were going to be a full thing, we would have loads more episodes to get through. And, yeah, I'm going to go now so I can sneeze. Thank you guys for watching. Time on Tomat. Bye!